so that for those people who are not here, they get to see it all as well. Touch and see if it'll let you touch it or if I need to. No. And I don't know how to fix that. All right, so we're just going to kind of alternate through. I'll get us started with the schedule. It is a completely different schedule than what your kids are used to, and I'm sure by now you figured that out. They are going to 3 different classrooms during the day, depending on if it's an A day or a B day. So they start out with homeroom with us before specials. So as they arrive, they're coming into their homeroom classroom. We've just got some activities that are going on in here just to sort of get their day started and calm down. And then they head to their specials. And we both have up in our classrooms what the specials rotation is. So if you're curious as to where they are on any given morning, they can tell you, but we could also share that if you want to know specifics. When they come back to the classroom with us at 9:50, we both do a really quick snack with them, very quick snack with them. It doesn't take much time. We give them usually about 5 minutes to just sort of transition back into the classroom, get a little something in their stomachs and get ready to go. And then first block is whatever their homeroom teacher is teaching. So for my class, they're in ELA in the morning. For Mr. Schroth's class, they're in math in the morning, and they're with us for an hour and a half for instruction. And then at 11:30, we all head outside for recess, and it's all 5 classes, and we rotate between the different playground areas. So they do get to go to all 3 sites, and they also get to be with all 5 classes at some point during the week. So they get a lot of interaction with the kids that even aren't in their homerooms. We come back from recess and go straight to lunch. After lunch, we've got block 2 that's about 90 minutes, and then they head to block 3 that is also about 90 minutes, and then they go back into their homeroom at the end of the day for dismissal. So the block 3 for us is our enrichment day, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We've got a separate slide for it. But if it's an A day, my homeroom is with me, and his homeroom is down with Miss Gilbert for science and social studies, and I do enrichment and remediation with them. If it's a B day, Mr. Schroth's class is with me for enrichment and remediation, and my class is down with Miss Gilbert for science and social studies. So they alternate the schedule with that 3rd block. Second block for the other team. So if you're in Miss Gilbert's class, you guys are actually doing enrichment in the morning on every other day because that's the block that they have her. And then second block, they go down and they have Miss McDermott for ELA, and 3rd block, they come back up and they're with Mr. Schroth. I'll get my cursor over there for you. All right, you're up.
All right, so just a couple things, and for the most part, everybody's doing a really good job with this so far. So make sure that there's headphones at school. Like, we will use that a lot. So, and if they don't have the headphones, I may turn the volume all the way down. Sometimes it's just like music in the background, which they really love for some reason. Sometimes it is important things like directions and things that like lessons that they're trying to learn. So it's really important to have those headphones. We can't have 25 iPads going at once and all that. Also, if you haven't joined the Schoology page of the class of 2032, then if you need any help with that, just reach out to me or Miss McKay or Miss Gilbert. We'll help you out with that. Also, if you already know about sneakers, you probably know about the special schedule. So, sneakers need to be wore on PE days. My class is Wednesday. I think your class is
Friday.
Yeah.
All right, so 3rd grade, if you're not already figuring it out, if you haven't already had a kid go through 3rd grade is a huge adjustment year for a lot of different reasons. So not only is the schedule entirely different, but there's also some really big changes that are going on in their brains. So it is the year that they're developmentally ready to switch from very concrete thoughts to much more abstract concepts. And so you're going to notice that there's a real shift in the curriculum that they're being taught. In math, you're going to see things like fractions that they just really aren't able to understand because of the abstract nature of fractions until they hit that 3rd grade year and their brains are ready for that information. It's also the time when we start to do a lot more higher critical thinking in their ELA class. So you're going to see us talking a lot about cause and effect and a lot about making inferences and predictions. And that just naturally is something that evolves at about this time that their brains are actually ready for that. It is the year that we hit them with standardized testing, and we don't put our toe in, we just like jump straight into the cold water. Like there's no end to the standardized testing in 3rd grade. A big part of that is Read to Achieve, which we'll talk to you guys about at a separate setting once we know who's already in and out of Read to Achieve. That's a monster all in and of itself, but from the emails and stuff that you've received from us that we've already gone through 3 of our really large state tests for standardized testing already, and we'll hit it 3 times during the year. So really the kids have been slammed with a lot of tests so far, and they're tests that they've never had to take before. So, and everything this year is online. So it is the first year that we've shifted all the end of year and beginning of year testing modules onto online format instead of being on paper, which is a big change for all of us. So they took their BOG, which this is the only year they'll ever take the BOG, because moving forward, they'll have the baseline established at the end of the previous year when they take their end of year tests, their big, EOG. And then when they get older, they'll have their end of course tests and that kind of stuff. But we didn't have anything to go off of in third grade. So they take a BOG at the beginning of, beginning of grade at the beginning of the year, and then the EOG at the end of the year. So we got them with that. We took MAP for reading and math, and we did M class. And this is the last year that they'll do M class, but they'll do it 3 times. So they'll get all of those tests at the beginning of the year, they get them all again around Christmas, and then they get them all again at the end of the year. We do a lot of application-based knowledge in third grade, and we do a lot of independent thinking. So you're probably already starting to notice the nature of the lessons are very different. It's a lot of stuff that they're getting the lesson, and then there's independent modules of work that they're having to do. And a lot of that is very personalized to whatever their needs are. And so I know in ELA, a lot of that work is cumulative, and I don't collect anything until the end of the week. And so when they're bringing home their notebooks and it's got stuff in it, please don't take the stuff out. And they should be telling you not to take it out. We've empowered them to be in charge of making sure that their binders stay together. It's not messy. It's not a bunch of extra stuff. Now, maybe it's messy. It could very well be very messy because they're independent on keeping up with it. But the stuff that's inside of those notebooks is stuff that we're working on over time, and we're going to collect it all on Friday. So if you're taking it out at night and looking at it and it's not making it back into the binder, they're not having it to work on the rest of the week and then to turn into us. So just be aware of that. It is also a huge year in shifting what we're doing with reading. It's the year that we stop teaching them how to read and we start reading to learn. And that is a huge shift that you're going to notice throughout the year.
And it kind of ties in with math too, because like on the EOG and like all the tests that we give, there's not a lot of computation. It's not just like, here's the addition problem, or here's the multiplication problem. It's all word problem based stuff. So really using already their knowledge of how to read, not still trying to struggle through that reading. I mean, of course, there are those cases, but Ms. McKay is there for that, and we'll take care of it.
Thanks. Cooper's having fun. Don't let me forget that he's out, because I don't need to leave him out overnight tonight. And then he really will poop on my floor. He won't go if he's just out for a little while, but if he's out all night, he might have way too much fun in here.
All right, so this is a slide, and we'll share this presentation. It just has all the standards. If you guys have any questions about what you might be learning, if you want to, we'll explain it too, and it's probably easier to contact one of us to find out. This is all kind of education language, and all sorts of different things like that, but it does have all the standards. So if you guys are interested in seeing what they might be learning, go ahead and check that out. Like I said, we'll share the slide presentation with you.
All right, so let's get into literacy a little bit. The big thing to remember for literacy this year is it is also the first year that we're novel-based instruction. And so it's a really fun year for literacy. The kids really enjoy it once they figure out how we do it. They're not reading just little bits and pieces of stories. They're not reading, short stories that are just coming in spurts. They're reading novels all year long. We just finished our first novel yesterday, and we'll do 9 different novels with them throughout the year. Most of the novels that we're teaching are a little bit higher of a level than what they would read independently. So we call it a frustration level book if they were to read it on their own. Now, not all of them are a frustration level with the books. We've got some super high flyers that can absolutely read it independently, but we're still guiding them through the thought process on it. So even if you've got a kid who really is a super high flyer with their reading skills, they're still not there with the higher level thinking. And so with us guiding them through the reading, we're able to really kind of delve into the theme of the book and talk about the different relationships that develop. And it's the first time they ever start to see how characters develop over time and how a character can change over the course of time, because in short stories, you don't really get to experience that. So it's a lot of fun for us, but it also allows us to pull that vocabulary in and make the vocabulary be very real world, because they're not just hearing, a list of sight words that maybe they have or haven't heard recently. All of the words that we're talking about might sound, when you are seeing on the list arbitrary for this week, you're like, what the heck? Why does my kid have to know arbitrary? But it's not the word arbitrary. It's learning how to use context clues to figure out what arbitrary means. And that's a life skill. And it's something that will carry them far through the rest of their lives with any words that they come into contact with. We're not asking them to memorize the words. We're asking them to be able to figure out a synonym that they know already that could replace that word, that helps them to understand what that word means. So it's a very, very different way of looking at vocabulary. We do it all through the eyes of novel-based instruction. do a lot of shared readings. They're constantly doing independent readings, and we do want to put them towards novels for that at this point. We still have a few that are resistant and are grabbing little books, but the idea is, again, that we're doing novel-based instruction with them, even on their independent reading. Right now, we're not worrying if it's like a graphic novel or something. I just want them to enjoy a book that's longer than, 6 or 7 pages. We do a lot of writing this year. Right now, most of our writing is in our writing journals, and it's prompt related, where they start with a prompt in the morning and then they have to write about that prompt. You'll notice that the homework is going to shift, and there's going to be a lot second quarter where they'll actually do responsive writing, and the writing will tie into whatever it is that they've been reading. We're starting with grammar. We've already looked at predicates and subjects and the basics of grammar this week. So we're going to be diving into some grammar stuff. I already said the vocabulary development. Some of the programs we use would be iExcel, Raz Kids, Read Theory, ReadWorks, eSpark, and BrainPop. And then just to get you a little bit familiar with what our quarters are going to look like with novels and with reading, we just finished Frindle, and the other one we'll do this quarter is going to be Because of Winn-Dixie, which is an absolutely phenomenal book. The kids love it. Second quarter, we'll really kind of focus on historical fiction, and we'll do some historical fiction book clubs, as well as the historical fiction books that we'll do together. Third quarter, we look at nonfiction text for quite a while because it's a pretty big part of our testing at the end. We do Stone Fox, which is an incredible book. And then we also do mysteries that quarter, and they love our mystery unit. And then at the end of the year, we wrap everything up with folk tales and with poetry. And I've got a list of the different things that were just our skills. I mentioned most of these already, but we're looking at cause and effect, character traits, context clues, which is with our vocabulary, a lot of figurative language. So I know a couple of them already know some figurative language, and I'm loving it as I hear that, but we'll really jump into the figurative language this year. Author's purpose, test, structure, theme. Look at sequencing. We talk a lot about how the order of events and how sometimes something will look like it comes first in a story, but it actually is jumping back in time, and that you have to kind of figure out when different events happen. Predicting, main idea, and inferencing. We do look at biographies and stuff too. All right,
now for the fun stuff. I'm just kidding. All right, so pretty much there's like 5 different categories here. The numbers with base 10 is kind of what we're starting with now, with like place value and rounding. We're going to get into addition and subtraction, of course, word problems with all that stuff too. With operations and algebraic thinking, that's what the kids are already clamoring for. When are we going to learn multiplication? And it's coming. After we do this addition and subtraction stuff, we're going to get into multiplication and division. Of course, with that is more word problems, but also the multi-step problems where we're adding and then multiplying, or multiplying and then adding, different things like that. Also, the big thing besides multiplication and division would be fractions. We're going to spend a long time on fractions, but we have all sorts of like manipulatives and things that the kids can play around with and mess around with, both digital and like live things they can use. So that's a really fun unit for the kids. Measurement and data, probably my favorite. I love data, stats, all that kind of stuff. We'll do bar graphs, pictographs, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, geometry. We talk about all sorts of shapes. Really like what I'd be identifying shapes and things like that. Pretty much, we're going to go kind of in this order, but fractions would be kind of more towards the end of the school year. And then we have built in about maybe 3 or 4 weeks at the end that we're going to review all of this stuff too. So it's kind of all year we're going to be doing this stuff, and then at the very end, we're going to be bringing it all back.
All right.
And then this is pretty much how it's going to work. I really like to work small groups if I can. Sometimes we do like a whole class activity. Like tomorrow, we're doing this math mystery that the kids are going to work in groups together and all that. So I won't really be pulling groups and like working with students that might need help with certain things. Instead, I'll just kind of be bouncing around. We're kind of helping individual groups as needed. But we do a lot of small group stuff, and I will do things with kids that might need a little bit more help and kids that are already know the material, and I'll push them a little bit farther, dive deeper into whatever the specific skill or strategy or whatever it is that we're learning.
Is that it? All right, Miss Gilbert, you got here just in time.
Hey, now even more fun. I'm Miss Gilbert, and I teach all the science and social studies, so I have all 125 kids. So these are the things that we're going to be working on. Sorry, I can't see that. In science, we'll be doing things like force and motion, matter, energy, earth systems, and ecosystems. I do love to use the outdoor learning center outside, so most of the kids have gone yesterday or today. We got rained on today, but that's okay. And so also, I would love to have people come in and do experiments with me. So if there's anyone that would love to come in and do a science experiment, please just email me. We love them. We'll try to do at least once a month. But, you know, the kids just really, they love it and they get so energized and, you know, things that make them happy. In social studies, my old passion, we will do communities, citizenships, economics, just the basics of economics, culture and geography. We do lots of mapping and things like that. But I'd really like to tie into the things that Jody and Tyler are doing or Kelly and they're doing over on that side. So I love to bring in historical fiction, like novels and things like that, that they really, really love. So my focus is primarily going to be nonfiction text. One of the hardest things in my class is because I do have so many kids, a lot of things are submitted. I don't have a lot of paper products. What I do have paper products is inside of their little black and white notebook. And I like to keep that here. So even the test will be, they can use their open notebook. I do that so they learn how to find information. I'm not necessarily teaching them to memorize things or things like that, but I want them to understand where they need to go to find the information. So that, if you ever see the little black and white notebook, please make sure you send it back because that is their, you know, their information base. If you ever see an assignment, because I have so many kids, if you ever see an assignment and it has, I think it's like a little, I guess it's an octagon, it's orange, and it says missing, that means that I've graded it and your child just forgot to submit it. If you see something like, let's say that it was due on Friday and I didn't grade things on Friday, and maybe on Sunday night, you're going to get an alert that says your child forgot to submit an assignment, blah, blah, blah. All you have to do is if there's no missing little octagon, that means I haven't graded it yet. And you can actually say, Jojo, go ahead and show me your submission. And if they say, oh, I didn't submit it yet, that's fine, no worries. Just make sure that they submit it. So you can keep up with their work all the time. They just take a picture. So they can submit it from home if they have it, but if not, have them email me and say, Miss G, I forgot to submit my blah, blah, blah. I'll do it when I come in the morning. So they're, I mean, you know, they're 9 years old. We're pretty flexible when it comes to that. You know, we're not gonna, you know, be too mad or whatever. So, but you can always look and see like if they've submitted it. Because if you go to their grade, let's say it's the scavenger hunt. If you click on scavenger hunt, it's going to have an image that they submitted to me. If there's no image, if it doesn't say image submitted, they haven't submitted it. So it's real easy for you to keep up with that. And just have them email me on Schoology, and that way they can start becoming a little more responsible for, you know, submitting their things, because that's big for me. Because I don't like a lot of papers. I can't do a lot of papers. It gets way too much for me. So, but I mean, just let me know if you have any questions. I'm always around.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the I&E time is just their enrichment and remediation time. And depending, we again do that during third block. And, you know, every other day they're going to be with me or they're going to be with Miss Gilbert, depending on whether it's an A day or a B day. It is both reading and math when they're in here, and our goal is twofold. So for our kids that are ahead of where they need to be on a certain skill, they've already obtained mastery, then the goal is for us to give them some extra stuff to push them a little bit harder and challenge them a little bit more and keep them from getting bored. For those folks who are struggling with the mastery on that particular topic or standard, then it's a chance for us to go back and kind of reloop with them and talk to them about it again and make sure that we kind of recover it with them, or we show it to them in a different way, or we allow an opportunity for some peer time when some of their friends who have already figured it out can maybe explain it to them in a different way that makes a little bit more sense than the way that we do it. It's also an opportunity for us to do some project-based learning. Those 90-minute blocks when they're in here with us in the classroom are cram-packed, and we don't get a lot of opportunities to do project-based activities with them. But that enrichment, that 90 minutes every other day, is a chance that we can get them to do some project-based stuff that's fun. They enjoy it. It's, you know, that craft kind of activity where they're using their brain in a totally different way. We're also doing a lot of small group instruction. So you might hear them say that Ms. Manley, our TA, has pulled them out. And that's not a bad thing. You know, Ms. Manley pulls out kids sometimes to do enrichment and sometimes to do remediation, but it's always to help them. And so having that 90 minutes when we have an extra adult available to work with the kids is also a great blessing. We try to do a lot of the pull-out time for the kids who have, you know, extended services. We try to do that as much as possible during enrichment and remediation because it's not pulling them from their core classes. It doesn't always work out that way, but we are, you know, the scheduling is hopefully trying to be able to minimize the time that they're out of their core because of that.
All right, and here is, like, some of these are math, some of these are both, some of these are reading. IXL, you probably heard of that. There's all sorts of math and literacy stuff on there. Prodigy is like a math, but they do have ELA. We haven't really explored that yet. But the kids love that. That's more like carrot, you know, like the kids, if they go, okay, you did well, you finished all of your work, then sure, you can be on Prodigy for, you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. eSpark we don't use as much anymore, but we'll get into that. Dreambox, that's new this year. I used it at my previous school in CMS. The kids really liked it. It's kind of a really good way to kind of keep them focused on what they need to be, and like the way it builds is really good. Raz Kids is reading. There's lots of really cool books on there. Boom Learning, that's for everything. Ms. Gilbert uses that along with us. Read Theory, ReadWorks, that's of course reading stuff. There's all sorts of really cool articles and things on there that the kids can read. A lot of nonfiction stuff, I know that. Brain Pop, vocabulary, those are just kind of additional things that we might put with the lesson, like vocabulary is like kind of fun hip hop songs or whatever that the kids can kind of memorize things or help them kind of, you know, get that earworm in and kind of know what they're doing as we're learning, like especially for rounding, they love that song. Discovery Ed, that's a lot of what Ms. Gilbert's going to be using, that kind of stuff. And then Quizlet, Kahoot, and Blue-Kit. I don't know if y'all heard about that. These kids go crazy for Blue-Kit. They just love it. It's like a little competition thing. But they still get to answer questions, and there still is like learning-based stuff. So it's all good stuff.
All good stuff. All right, so academic expectations. This is, again, one of those really big altering years for kids. It's the year they stop having check marks and smiley faces and they get real grades. So the grading scale at Lake Norman Charter, we are on a 10-point scale, and that will carry with them all the way through high school. And then the points we've got up there, we're getting points for participation and effort. We're getting points for homework, for classwork, for quizzes, projects, and tests, and it goes up incrementally in the value of it. When you're looking at grades in the grade book, please pay attention also to the point value of something. You know, homeworks are usually worth 5 points. A test is worth 100. At the end, we add up all the points and we use, you know, the formula to calculate out and figure out what the grade is based on a 100-point scale. So obviously there's more emphasis put on something that's worth 100 points than worth 5, but we want them to turn everything in and do their best work on all of it. We also really ask that you don't get too hung up on those grades, especially the first quarter. This is a huge transition for them. And the stress in third grade, especially with all the testing at the beginning, is really exorbitant. And so, you know, we care about the grades, obviously, but these grades are not going on anybody's final report, you know, that's going to go to college somewhere. So this is a year about growth and learning and just kind of figuring it out. And if they have a C, they have a C. They have an A, they have an A. You know, it's more important that they're figuring out the skills and the time, you know, that is given, and that we're, you know, figuring out where they are and how we can help them, and that they're learning to manage the expectations. So we really don't put a ton of emphasis on what that grade is. Usually the parents pay a lot more attention to that than the kids do, but we just ask that you kind of chill a little bit on it and just let it play out. It always, by the middle of the year, plays out, and we start to see it level and everybody starts to kind of excel.
Well, of course, if you have questions or anything, you know, feel free to reach out. All right, so homework, it's a little bit different. I'll let Ms. McKay talk a little bit more about what she does for ELA, because I know it changes by the quarter. But for math, it's 5 to 10 points. For math, it's 5 points. There is that one sheet that has like the 4 days and 4 problems per day. It's given on a Monday. It's due the next Monday, so they have a full week to work on it. So I know people have busy weeks. If that's the case, then maybe on Saturday or Sunday, there might be a few minutes that they can get it done. It's really only, you know, 5-10 minutes a night, if even that. If they're spending 20, 30, 40 minutes, tell them to stop, and they can come ask me any questions that they have. Homework is just to kind of have them think about math for a little bit when they're at home. That's really all it is. Like I said, if there's a frustration, if there's something where they're spending way too much time or it's causing arguments and all that kind of stuff, I heard about all that stuff during COVID and everything. So if that's the case, tell them to stop, put it away. They can ask me any questions. I would love to help them out in the morning. I mean, Ms. Gilbert's class, Ms. McKay's class, they can come in the morning time, no problem. We also do Math Superstars. That's just optional. They do not have to do that. That's the 1 page front and back. Each question has like a number of 1 to 4 stars by it. I do give like rewards for that. I love that program. I did it when I was a kid. It really got me into math and I can think about math in different ways. So if they're interested, if they are even wanting to try it, I would definitely kind of encourage that. But even if it's like, I just want to try this one problem. Okay, just that one problem, they can still turn it in. They can get the 2 or 3 stars or whatever it is. It still counts as a reward for them. So they'll still get something for that. And if they try them all and they get them all wrong, that's fine too. That, that happens. It's just for them to be thinking about math and kind of thinking outside the box. So this says we'll also accept late homework. It is 1 point per day. So if it's over 5 days, that's 0 points. So it's not going to be counted. And then
yeah, so homework for ELA is really incredibly intentional. In the first quarter, all we're looking for is developing reading habits, and we're looking for them to start to build some stamina. And so, when they're just reading 20 minutes a night for 5 nights out of the week, and they're asked to log it in their agenda books and you guys sign off on it, that's really all we need. And I don't care what book they're reading, although I would prefer it's more of a chapter book than, a picture book kind of a thing. But I just want them to enjoy reading for 20 minutes, 5 times a week. And then next quarter, you're going to see that we're going to add a writing piece to it. And so we're going to ask them to start to do written response to what they've read. So the reading might be, more like 15 minutes and the writing might be 5. It's still going to be about a 20-minute expectation per night, but we're going to dictate to them what question we want them to answer. And so we're going to be very specific and we're going to model a lot of that in class. By the third quarter, we're going to shift it to where they have a set of questions and they're asked to pick the question that matches what they read. And so if they're reading something where the setting changed, they might want to pick a question that ties to that. Or if they're reading something where a character development piece happened that was really interesting, then pick a question that matches that. Don't talk about the setting when your whole story for that night was about the character, right? So we're teaching them to be really intentional about the questions that they pick, but we're developing those skills over time and we're modeling it constantly in the classroom. So don't let them come home and tell you, I never saw that question before. We're doing it with them in class during our classroom readings, and then they're doing that same type of thing at home when they get with you guys at night. All right, the one other thing with grades, just to kind of throw in at the end, is I've got 3 kids and I totally get the pressure of grades, but for us, especially in 3rd grade, when it's such a pivotal year, the grades show us who has mastery and who doesn't. And so if everybody's getting 100, then I'm assuming everybody has full mastery and I can move on to the next thing. And really that's not logical. Everybody's got skills in different areas and they're going to struggle in some things and be really above in others. And the grades for us are much more an indicator of what we need to go back and reloop and reteach. If everybody makes a bad grade on something, then we reloop to everybody. If it's certain kids that, struggle in a certain skill set, we're going to reloop to those. If the ones that have the 100s and are doing really well, those are the ones we know to push and move on with it. And it's going to change. And so just again, we always get hit with a lot of grade questions, especially the first quarter in 3rd grade. It's a lot. And I get it. I've been there. I've been, a 3rd grade parent 3 different times. And it is a really hard adjustment with those grades to see in print that your kid didn't score, an A on something. But you have to look at it through our lens and see that that's the indicator we need to be able to teach your kid what they need so that by the end of the year, they're going to be ready to move on to 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, knowing everything that they needed to learn this year. And this is a really important year. So I don't want to skip anything with them. We don't want to skip anything with them. And those grades are that indicator to us as to what we need to focus more on and what we're ready to move on. And, we've got good mastery over. So please don't get too hung up on the grades. And if we're concerned about your kid for some reason, I promise you we'll reach out to you. We're really very good communicators for the most part, and we'll let you know if we're worried about it. So you're always welcome to reach out and talk to us at any time, but we will let you know if we're worried about something, if that makes sense. All right, well then we've probably got 15, 20 minutes or so before they're gonna kick everybody out of the building. So we're all just going to head back. Well, are there any questions that would be for the good of the entire group, first of all, that you think that everybody might have the same question or something we didn't hit on, or that, seems big? Because we can answer the big questions for everybody right now. I know we didn't hit everything that well, so. The kids have a lot of questions when we ask that. We're really not used to having a quiet room and no hands up right now. Nobody has questions.
So we have a lot of resources that we are going to use. Maybe we have all the username passwords for those.
So the kids, when they're at school this year, this is the first year that we've shifted not only to one-to-one technology for the kids in 3rd and 4th grade, but we also have Google accounts for everybody here at school. And so the Google accounts this year have been a lifesaver, because at the middle school and the high school, they're getting their own devices that they're taking home with them and everything's saved in it. But down here, we've always had, up until 3rd grade, they're sharing iPads. And then once they hit 3rd grade, there's no, Google password that's already built into it. So you really can't save any of the stuff. So we have to have a million different little password sheets and stuff that we try to get them to save, but it's really time consuming. For us here at school now, that Google account that they're all signed under, they all have their own iPad that is just designated to them during the day. And the Google account allows everything to be saved in it. So very rarely something will drop and we'll have to go back and look up a password, but for the most part, while they're here, they have it. If there's a specific program at home, we've sent everybody their Schoology QR codes. So they should have access through their QR codes at home to be able to get into their Schoology accounts. But if there's a specific program that they're needing to use at home, we'll make sure that those passwords go home with them. If there's something they're wanting to do just as like extra at home, they can write down their password here and take it home. Yeah, they have access to all of them here in the classroom. So.
How do you find out what the Google?
I have a list up here, so I can give it to you if you want to write it down. I have yours too. I have both of them. Yeah, I have them. You're welcome to get them from me.
Will they be taking their iPad home on Wednesdays?
No, so right now, because they're not paying any technology fees or anything at the elementary school, they're limited to just keeping them here. And knowing the way that they're sometimes treated here, I can see why we're not sending them home. You all would be paying for a lot of iPads if we were sending them home with you. So it's probably best that they stay in the classroom. But what we've learned from e-learning is that, they can get onto pretty much any device, even a phone, from home, and be able to access stuff at home. And most of the programs that we'll use for e-learning are the things that we're using all the time in the classroom, that'll be very easy for them to access, or we'll make sure that we provide them with whatever login they need. The only thing that they'll definitely need from home will be that Schoology QR code to be able to get into their Schoology account. And this year, everything is done off of Schoology with them. So your kids should be very, very proficient at this point on how to get into their Schoology courses and how to use the hyperlinks to get into any of the activities that we're using, because we're doing all of that with them every single day in class. So by the time they get that first e-learning day, which is coming up in September 26th, they should be ready to roll with it.
Are you all live Zooming? Or is
We
that
are not.
asynchronous?
No, it's asynchronous. Yes, it is asynchronous, so they can do it at any point during the day. And we're keeping it, relatively simple. Yeah. We will not make it too complicated for those days. Any other questions for the greater good? All right, well, then we will just kind of migrate to our own classrooms. And if you have specific questions for us, I'm guessing that sometime around 7:20-ish, they're probably going to make the call, just have people start to wrap it up. But that gives us a good 10 plus minutes to chat. And we do have parent conferences coming up the middle of October, and we are required to have one with everyone who will meet with